My name is Linda Martinez, and I'm 58 years old. If you're watching this story, I need you to understand something important. Age discrimination is real, it's brutal, and it nearly destroyed everything I've built over 3 decades. But this isn't just about getting fired. This is about revenge, justice, and watching the people who betrayed me lose everything they thought they'd stolen. I worked at Bridgemont Technologies in Austin, Texas for 27 years. I started as a junior software engineer in 1996, back when the internet was still new and exciting. I worked my way up to senior director of product development. I led teams that created 3 of the company's most profitable products. I trained countless engineers, mentored dozens of interns, and dedicated my entire adult life to that company. My boss for the last 5 years was Craig Henderson, 38 years old, MBA from some fancy school, and absolutely obsessed with youth culture. He wore hoodies to executive meetings, talked constantly about disruption and innovation, and made it clear he thought anyone over 45 was basically a dinosaur. But I ignored it because I was good at my job. My performance reviews were always excellent. My teams delivered results. Then last March, everything changed. Craig hired his former college roommate, Derek Walsh, as Vice President of Innovation. Derek was 35, arrogant, and had 0 experience in our industry. His previous job was at a startup that burned through investor money and collapsed after 2 years. But Craig thought he was a genius. Derek started attending my team meetings uninvited. He'd interrupt presentations, question my decisions, and suggest trendy buzzwords like AI integration and blockchain solutions for problems that didn't need them. My team hated him, but Craig loved him. One morning in late July, I arrived at work to find Derek sitting in my office. He was going through papers on my desk like he owned the place. I walked in and asked what he was doing. He looked up with this smug smile and said Craig wanted him to audit my department's efficiency. I felt my stomach drop. An efficiency audit usually meant layoffs or restructuring. I asked if Craig had mentioned this to me directly. Derek shrugged and said maybe I should check my email more often. I checked my email immediately. Nothing from Craig. I marched to his office, but his assistant said he was in back-to-back meetings all day. That entire week, Derek shadowed my team, took notes, and asked condescending questions about our workflows. On Friday afternoon, Craig finally called me into his office. Derek was there too, sitting in the chair I usually sat in during our one-on-ones. Craig didn't waste time. He said the company was pivoting toward a younger, more agile workforce. They needed fresh perspectives and innovative thinking. My position was being eliminated effective immediately. I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. I asked about my projects, my team, the product launch scheduled for next month. Craig said Derek would be taking over my responsibilities. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I asked if this was about my age, because what he just described sounded exactly like age discrimination. Craig's expression hardened. He said it wasn't about age, it was about fit and vision. The company needed leaders who understood the future, not the past. I was being offered a severance package, 3 months' salary and benefits, and a non-disclosure agreement. If I signed, I'd leave quietly. If I didn't, they'd contest my unemployment claim and make things difficult. I looked at Derek, who was barely containing a satisfied smirk. I looked back at Craig, someone I'd worked alongside for years. I asked for time to review the severance documents with a lawyer. Craig said I had until Monday morning to decide. I walked out of that office in a daze. My assistant Rachel saw my face and knew immediately something was wrong. I told her I'd been let go. She looked shocked and asked if they were serious. I nodded and started packing my personal items from my desk. My coffee mug from my daughter's college graduation, framed photos, awards I'd received over the years. It all felt meaningless now. Security escorted me out that evening like I was a criminal. 27 years of loyalty, and I was walked out the door with a cardboard box. I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour, crying, before I could even drive home. That weekend was the darkest of my life. I told my husband Robert what happened. He was furious and wanted me to fight immediately. But I felt defeated. At 58, who would hire me? The tech industry worships youth. I'd seen it happen to colleagues before. Once you hit 50, you become invisible. Robert reminded me I was brilliant, experienced, and respected in my field. But I couldn't shake the humiliation. On Sunday night, I was going through old emails, looking for documentation of my work achievements, when I found a message from 3 years ago. It was from Maya Patel, a former intern I'd mentored back in 2015. She'd sent a thank you note after landing her first job, telling me I'd changed her life by believing in her. I remembered Maya clearly. She was 22 then, brilliant but insecure, a computer science graduate from UT Austin who didn't think she was good enough for the tech world. I'd spent hours coaching her, teaching her not just technical skills but confidence and strategic thinking. She'd been terrified of presenting to executives, so I practiced with her dozens of times until she could pitch ideas without shaking. When her internship ended, I wrote her a recommendation that helped her get hired at a small startup. I wondered what happened to her. I looked her up on LinkedIn and my jaw dropped. Maya Patel was now the CEO of Quantum Leap Solutions, a cloud infrastructure company based in San Francisco. I'd read about Quantum Leap in tech journals. They'd recently closed a funding round that valued the company at $2.1 billion. Maya was 30 years old and running one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. I stared at her profile picture, this confident, powerful woman, and barely recognized the nervous intern I'd mentored. I almost didn't reach out. What would I even say? Hi, remember me, I got fired, can you help? It felt pathetic, but Robert pushed me. He said Maya clearly valued what I'd taught her, and successful people remember those who helped them. The worst she could say was no. On Monday morning, instead of signing the severance agreement, I sent Maya a message through LinkedIn. I kept it brief. I told her I'd been let go from Bridgemont after 27 years and was exploring new opportunities. I mentioned I was proud of everything she'd accomplished and would love to catch up if she had time. I didn't expect a response. But 2 hours later, my phone rang from a San Francisco number. It was Maya. Her voice was warm, familiar despite the years. She said she couldn't believe Bridgemont let me go and asked what happened. I gave her the honest version. The new boss, the efficiency audit, the "you're too old" subtext disguised as lack of vision. Maya went quiet for a moment, then said something that changed everything. She told me Quantum Leap was expanding and they desperately needed someone to lead their new enterprise division. The role would involve building a team from scratch, developing products for Fortune 500 clients, and reporting directly to her. She asked if I'd be interested. I was stunned. I asked if she was serious. Maya laughed and said she'd spent 6 years looking for someone with my exact skills and experience. She wanted me to fly to San Francisco that week to meet her executive team. I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt since Friday, hope. I didn't sign Bridgemont's severance agreement. Instead, I called an employment lawyer named Patricia Ruiz. I told her everything, the age comments, the abrupt termination, the suspicious timing. Patricia listened carefully and said I had a strong case for age discrimination. She advised documenting everything and filing a complaint with the EEOC. But first, she wanted me to secure my next position so Bridgemont couldn't claim the termination didn't harm my career. I flew to San Francisco on Wednesday. Maya's office was in a gleaming tower in Soma with views of the entire city. When I walked into the conference room, Maya hugged me like family. She introduced me to her executive team, and we spent 4 hours discussing the enterprise division she wanted to build. They asked tough questions about strategy, team building, and market positioning. I answered every single one confidently. By the end of the meeting, Maya offered me the position. VP of Enterprise Solutions, $240,000 base salary plus equity, full benefits, and a signing bonus. It was $60,000 more than I'd been making at Bridgemont, and the equity could be worth millions if the company went public. I accepted on the spot. Maya told me she'd wanted to hire someone like me for years, but every executive recruiter kept sending her young candidates with impressive resumes and zero real-world experience. She said the best decision she ever made was interning under me because I taught her that experience and wisdom matter more than trends. I flew back to Austin that night feeling powerful for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I emailed Craig Henderson to inform him I was declining the severance agreement and would not be signing the NDA. Craig called me within an hour, clearly angry. He asked what I thought I was doing. I told him I'd accepted a position at Quantum Leap Solutions as VP of Enterprise. There was silence on the line, then he asked if I was serious. I confirmed I was very serious, and by the way, I'd be filing an age discrimination complaint with the EEOC. Craig's tone shifted immediately. He said I was overreacting, that my termination had nothing to do with age. I asked him to explain why Derek Walsh, with 2 years of failed startup experience, was qualified to replace someone with 27 years of proven results. Craig stammered about fresh perspectives and innovation. I told him he should save those explanations for the EEOC investigator. Then I hung up. Filing the complaint felt empowering. Patricia helped me prepare a detailed statement documenting Craig's comments about needing younger leaders. I included emails where Craig praised Derek's youth and energy, performance reviews proving my excellent work, and testimony from former colleagues who'd witnessed the age bias. The EEOC accepted my case for investigation. Meanwhile, I started my new job at Quantum Leap in September. Maya had been right about needing my expertise. The enterprise division was a mess, no clear strategy, no established relationships with potential corporate clients, just vague ideas about selling to big companies. I spent my first month developing a comprehensive go-to-market plan. I hired a small team of experienced sales engineers, all over 45, all previously pushed out of other companies for being too old. Together, we built something incredible. By November, we'd signed our first major client, a Fortune 100 financial services company worth $8 million in annual recurring revenue. Maya was thrilled. Then in early December, something unexpected happened. My former team at Bridgemont started reaching out. First it was Rachel, my old assistant. She called to tell me the product launch I'd been managing, the one Derek took over, had been a complete disaster. The software was buggy, clients were complaining, and the company was facing potential lawsuits over unmet deliverables. Derek had cut corners, ignored quality testing, and rushed everything to meet an arbitrary deadline Craig had set. Rachel said half my old team had quit in frustration. The company was hemorrhaging talent and clients. Then other former colleagues contacted me. They said Craig and Derek were panicking, trying to fix the damage, but they had no idea what they were doing. One engineer told me Bridgemont's stock price had dropped 18% after their disastrous earnings call where they had to admit the product failures. I shared this information with Maya over coffee one morning. She listened thoughtfully, then asked if I knew Bridgemont's biggest enterprise client. I did. It was Silverton Financial, a massive investment firm that accounted for nearly 30% of Bridgemont's revenue. Maya smiled and said Quantum Leap had been in talks with Silverton for months about replacing their infrastructure provider. She asked if I'd be willing to lead that pitch. I understood immediately what she was suggesting. If we won Silverton's business, Bridgemont would lose their largest client. It would be devastating for them, possibly fatal given their current problems. I told Maya I'd be honored to lead the pitch. Over the next 6 weeks, my team and I prepared the most comprehensive proposal I'd ever created. We addressed every pain point Silverton had with their current provider, which I knew intimately from my years at Bridgemont. In late January, we presented to Silverton's CTO and executive team. The presentation lasted 3 hours. We demonstrated our technology, outlined our implementation timeline, and proved we could deliver everything Bridgemont couldn't. At the end, Silverton's CTO said he'd been skeptical about switching providers, but our proposal was exactly what they needed. 2 weeks later, Silverton signed a 5-year contract with Quantum Leap worth $50 million. It was the biggest deal in our company's history. Maya announced it at our all-hands meeting, crediting my team for the incredible work. The tech press covered the story extensively because Silverton dropping Bridgemont was huge news. Bridgemont's stock dropped another 25% when the announcement went public. Craig Henderson was reportedly fighting for his job. Then in March, exactly 1 year after I'd been fired, I received a call from Patricia Ruiz, my lawyer. The EEOC had completed their investigation and found reasonable cause to believe Bridgemont had engaged in age discrimination. They were referring the case to their legal team for potential litigation. But before that happened, Bridgemont's lawyers had reached out requesting a settlement meeting. Patricia said they were scared, facing a public lawsuit on top of their business failures would destroy what remained of their reputation. She asked what outcome I wanted. I thought about it carefully. I didn't want just money. I wanted accountability. We agreed to meet with Bridgemont's legal team. The meeting happened at Patricia's office in downtown Austin. Bridgemont sent 3 lawyers and their head of hour. Craig and Derek weren't there, probably too ashamed to face me. Bridgemont's lead attorney opened by saying they disputed my claims but wanted to avoid costly litigation. They offered $400,000 to settle. Patricia countered with our demands. First, $1.2 million in damages and back pay. Second, Craig Henderson and Derek Walsh must be terminated immediately. Third, Bridgemont must implement mandatory age discrimination training for all managers and executives. Fourth, a public statement acknowledging they'd failed to maintain an inclusive workplace. The lawyers looked shocked. They said our demands were unreasonable. I leaned forward and told them we had documented evidence, witness testimony, and EEOC findings supporting everything. If we went to trial, Bridgemont would lose publicly and expensively. Plus, given their current stock price and client losses, could they really afford a prolonged legal battle? They asked for a recess to call their executives. When they returned an hour later, they'd accepted our terms. All of them. Craig and Derek were fired within a week. Bridgemont issued a statement about renewing their commitment to workplace diversity and inclusion. The settlement check arrived in April. I donated half to organizations fighting age discrimination in tech. The rest went into my retirement fund, which was now healthier than ever thanks to my quantum leap salary and equity. Maya promoted me to senior vice president 6 months later. My enterprise division now generates over $200 million in annual revenue. We've hired 50 people, most of them experienced professionals who'd been pushed out of other companies for being too old. We're proving every single day that experience matters, that wisdom beats trendy buzzwords, and that age is an asset, not a liability. Sometimes former colleagues from Bridgemont reach out asking if we're hiring. I always take those calls. As for Craig and Derek, I heard Craig is working at a mid-level position at some startup. Derek moved back east. I don't think about them much anymore. What I think about is this: they thought firing me would make their lives easier. Instead, it set off a chain reaction that destroyed their careers and their company's future. Because the intern I'd mentored years ago, the one they'd have dismissed as too young and inexperienced back then, became the person who gave me the power to bring them down. That's the real lesson here. The people you help, the bridges you build, the relationships you invest in, those matter more than any corporate title or trendy strategy. Maya succeeded because someone believed in her when she was starting out. I survived because Maya remembered that. And Bridgemont failed because they valued youth over loyalty, trends over substance, and arrogance over wisdom. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. If you're facing age discrimination right now, document everything, find a good lawyer, and don't let them make you feel worthless. You're not too old, you're experienced, and in the right place, with the right people. That experience is invaluable. Age discrimination is real, but so is justice. Fight for it. And now to the lovely viewers of this channel. Got a story? Let's tell it together. Here on this channel, your voice matters. If you have a personal story, a revenge moment, a betrayal twist, or even an idea that you think would make our narrative sharper, more emotional, or more entertaining, share it with us. Tell us what themes you want more of, what twists keep you hooked, what parts of our stories hit you the hardest, or what you'd love to hear next. Drop your thoughts, stories, and suggestions in the comments below. Let's build this amazing community together, one powerful story at a time. Your story could be the next one featured. Don't be shy, we're listening. And we would always respond. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more satisfying stories like this. Thanks for watching.